Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the League One Lowdown. We would normally call this the preview show, but it's kind of the preview/review show with me, Callum, and Sam. Sam, good Wednesday evening as we're recording this.
Yes, it's a very dark, chilly Wednesday evening. What we've become accustomed to in lovely December evenings, haven't we? Nice chilly evenings.
It's really depressing when I go to work to do a midweek game and it's already dark by the time I get to the studio. It's horrible. But yeah, as always, we're looking ahead to this weekend's fixtures, and as it's Spotify Wrapped today, other music distributors are available, I suppose, as we'd say. But as it's Spotify Wrapped, we thought we'd do our League One Wrapped as well. But as usual, Sam, we do our predictions game. So I'll hand over to you to go over the scores, and I'll put my smug face on.
Yeah, I don't really know how this has happened, but I've had one of the worst weeks I think I've ever seen in Prediction League history. And we've been doing this roughly a year now. I know there's 3 games left to play at the time of recording. We still have the 3 Wednesday fixtures, but I've got 1 point. I got 1 correct, unless I am completely blind and I have read everything wrong off this document and I've just ignored all my results. I got 1 correct outcome, which was Wrexham versus Barnsley. I don't really know how that was possible, but that's really embarrassing.
Poor. Yeah, it is.
And then you pop along and you get 4 correct outcomes and then a correct result for Huddersfield versus.
It's not even a great week, is it, at all?
No.
By my standards, it's just an okay week.
You got half of, so 5 out of the 9 games that have been played, you got correct near enough, which puts you in the lead. You've overturned for the first time in, I think, 7 weeks or 7 match days. You are now back in the lead. You now lead by 3 points. I've got 117 and you have 120. I'm hoping that kind of swings back in my favour tonight with some of the predictions that we put in last week. And if you want to check the predictions before Wednesday's games, head over to our X page or the Blue Sky page at League One Lowdown to check the results.
So hopefully all goes well. As we say, it is Spotify Wrapped. Sam, do you have your top artists to hand? I'll get mine up.
Oh, okay.
I was all right by mine. I mean, I know this is, people will probably listening to this in retrospect, but I suppose a bit of a peek behind the curtain as to our music tastes.
Mine's all over the place. I will tell you that right now. Yes.
Oh dear.
League One Wrapped. For some unknown reason, I don't know how this is in there. Orient fans will appreciate this. London Calling is in there, which is a song that we play pre-match. Yeah, that's in there.
Oh dear. Big fan. So my most listened to artist, I don't know if I give off this vibe, but it's the 1975.
Okay. That's pretty understandable. I know one of their songs and that's it. I'm not going to lie. My top was Tom Grennan.
Oh, decent. It's the Gillette song.
That's done.
That's the main thing, isn't it? Over 52,000 minutes listened, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing.
You are addicted, my friend.
I do like my music, I'll be honest. I like music. But moving away from the actual Spotify Wrapped and onto our League One Wrap, we've got, I think, 5 categories, if I can count. So it's our favourite game of the last 12 months, the player of the last 12 months, manager of the last 12 months, the team that exceeded expectations, and the team which underperformed expectations over the last 12 months. We'll start with our favourite games. Sam, what have you gone with?
I've gone for Portsmouth, losing 3-0 to Orient. I remember going to that game. Portsmouth had one of the best home records in League One. It was just a game where going to an old school proper football ground in Portsmouth, and it was my first time at Portsmouth, and to come up to eventually the league champions and absolutely dominate the game was possibly the best away day I've been on and one of my favourite games I've probably ever been in terms of an Orient fan, to be honest.
I'm also going with a Portsmouth game. This was Lincoln at home to Portsmouth, last game of the season. I think that Lincoln had the perfect chance to wrap up playoffs against Portsmouth. I think this one had already won the league. But lost 2-0 in the end. But I remember when that second goal went in, and the whole stadium just like the players were flat out. They're giving it their all, but the stadium applauded them. Like even though they just conceded a goal, and it was like, do you know what? It was one of those small moments that actually make you happy to be a football fan. We can have incidents, and no football fan is perfect by any stretch of means. But when your fans are applauding your team, even when they're losing 2-0, it was just like, yeah, decent. Even though we've missed out, what a run it's been. Moves us on to the player of the last 12 months. I don't want to say slightly cheated on mine. They've got a League One connection. I'm going to go with Colby Bishop, who did incredibly well last year with 21 goals, obviously, as Portsmouth got promoted. But the thing that's kind of clinched it for me is obviously we all know I don't want to say the issues that he's had, but the time out he's had because of risks to his heart. Imagine being told that and then having to come back and play football, just the speed that he's managed to do that. And he's already scoring in the Championship as well. I don't keep an eye on the Championship as much as I should, so I don't know exactly how he's doing. But just in terms of a player who's played in League One this year, who's done incredibly well, both on and off the pitch, Colby Bishop takes it for me.
Okay, I think that's a fair suggestion. It's a player who I think was weirdly hated by some section of the Portsmouth fan base last season, unfairly criticised because he wasn't contributing more than goals. But at the end of the day, if you're scoring 20-odd goals in League One, that's the striker's main job at the end of the day, isn't it, to score goals?
Yeah.
I went for Kwame Poku.
Yeah.
He's been
Yeah.
electrifying, I think, so far this season with 10 goals in about 16 games. Over the course of 2024, he ended up with 14 goals and 7 assists and did have an injury spell towards the end of last season. Epitomised everything good what Posh have done, especially this season, stepped into the shoes that Mason Clark left exquisitely. And if Peterborough to get into the playoffs, they're going to need him fit and firing for the rest of the season.
That'd be a tall ask, given they're 9 points off already. But then, who am I to talk as a Lincoln fan at the moment? Moving on to manager of the last 12 months. Sam, who have you gone with?
I've gone for Ruben Selles at Reading, who, as of today, at the time of recording, has been given permission or be granted permission by Reading to talk to Hull, which could be massive implications for Reading. But to keep them up under all the adversity that was going on last year, including points deductions, incredible job. And we've gone into this season. They've lost one game at home and are sitting, I believe they're actually in the playoff places.
Yeah, they're sixth now, yeah.
To sit in the playoff places.
Off the top of the league, yeah.
With the onus still not selling the club, even after offers. What a job he has done. He's getting the best out of, I think he's got about 15 players that are probably good enough for League One. And what he's doing is incredible. Absolutely incredible.
It's very impressive. I feel like he's... Yeah, I don't know whether Hull would be the right one for him, but he'd be... I don't know whether he'd be a good fit over there. But again, I don't really keep an eye on the Championship at this point. My manager, Darryl Clark, I think for me it's kind of like a case of, like, in terms of consistency, in terms of people that... Because it's obvious to give it to, Bloomfield and, people who are at the top of, like, the leagues, either at the end of last year or the start of this year. But for me, Darryl Clark, he was so close with Cheltenham last year, keeping them up nearly. It was nearly the great escape, but I think for them to even be in the position where it could have happened was remarkable. And then Barnsley, I think, is a side that we've all predicted to kind of drop off a little bit this year. We didn't think with the players that they'd sold and brought in, at least at the time, we kind of predicted they wouldn't do too well. I know they're in a bit of a slump at the minute without a win in 4, but 3 points off the playoffs, 10 points off the automatics. Maybe the automatics slightly out of reach, but to be within touch of the playoffs, new job and a big club as well in Barnsley with historic Championship level, you'd probably say is not a bad job at all.
No, I think that's fair, especially for the job he did at Cheltenham. He just needs to sort that home form out at Barnsley for them to compete. I think for top 6 home forms, as we all know, is incredibly important for any team that's striving to get promotion for this season.
So second to last team that exceeded expectations. I think I was kind of torn with this one. Wycombe this year are doing incredibly well. They've kind of shocked everyone. But I think for me, the team that I don't want to say over the whole year that has exceeded expectations because they're not in League One anymore, but it was Oxford.
Okay.
Like they're a club that obviously have high ambitions, but I don't think I would have tipped them for playoffs last year at all. And then to obviously change managers halfway through and get into the playoffs and then obviously win the whole thing. And I believe they're doing all right in the championship off the top of my head.
They're about 18th, I think, something like that.
Yeah, which is probably higher than I would have predicted them to be. Obviously, slightly bitter because obviously Des Buckingham was heavily linked with the Lincoln job. But anyway, they're doing incredibly well. So yeah, I was torn between Oxford and Wycombe. I think for me.
Yeah, I went for Wycombe. I think for the whole of 2024, since the turn of the year, they've been the best team in League One. They got to the whatever trophy it's called now, seems to change every week. Final, they did
now, yeah,
something like that. They lost out, I think it was to Peterborough at Wembley, but then they continued good form, finished just outside the playoffs at the end of last year, and then they just continued that momentum into this year. The pickup of Kone from Athletic Newham has particularly impressed me because they've got these new owners who are absolutely loaded. But if you look at the signings they've made, they've not gone, oh, we've got all this money, let's just go out and spend millions and millions of pounds. They've invested shrewdly. And Bloomfield has got a style of play and it's just getting the best out of every single player he's got. It's got a bit of a Gareth Ainsworth vibe around this time of the season, I think.
Well, they're doing incredibly well, which is in stark contrast to our next and final category because we always like finishing on a negative here. And that is the team that has underperformed the most in 2024. Sam, I'll let you annoy your fan base before I do.
I've gone for Charlton. There was high hopes, especially for this season, with Nathan Jones in there. A lot of investment in the playing squad. But they're still in the bottom half. It's a carbon copy, near enough, of what happened to them last season. They started exceptionally well, and I think they've won 2 in 11 in League One, completely falling down the table. Performances are not good. They don't score goals. I know they've got injuries, but every team gets injuries over the course of the season. I just think with a club like Charlton's pedigree, they should not be lower mid-table in League One. You should be fighting for top 6 every single season, and that's why I've gone for Charlton as the biggest underachievers.
We'll talk on it in a minute, but that gap to the we were talking a few weeks ago about there being a gap to the relegation places. That's closed right up now with Crawley's decent form. You've got Northampton on 18, Northampton in 21st on 18, Charlton in 12th on 22. So there's not a gap there anymore at all. 4 points. No. We could be talking in 2 weeks of them in that bottom 4, and that would be a turn up for the books. Granted, I think there are worse teams than them this year, so I don't think they're in a relegation battle of sorts. But the team I've put to underperform kind of are in the relegation scrap, and that's Blackpool. And I don't think I'd have ever predicted that this year. Last year they were always the maybe side. They were never in the playoffs, but they were always 8th or 9th. It felt like even when they lost, they'd stay 8th or 9th, and when they'd won, they'd stay 8th or 9th, regardless of what happened. So yeah, and then obviously this year they've changed managers and obviously things outside everyone's control, but down to 18th, the club the size of Blackpool that I remember growing up were in the Premier League, obviously. And that kind of era, Charlie Adam and stuff like that. I know I know players move on and whatnot, but you hope a year in the Premier League gives you something to build on in the Championship, and instead it's gone downhill, and now they just seem to be a bit of a nothing club in League One, with all due respect. So yeah, really disappointing from Blackpool, given what they have the capacity to do that we know they do. But there we go. Nothing like offending some people to kick off the festive period, is there, Sam?
No, that's what we love to do here on the preview show, especially. You seem to. So you've now got Mansfield and Blackpool on your hit list for Christmas this year.
Yes, and if you'd like to send me any parcels, I live in Leighton, Orient, or where I live wherever Sam's from. If you'd like to send me your parcels to Sam's address, there we go. Beautiful stuff. So this week we're doing something. Well, we're going back to the OG format. We're looking at a couple of games in depth, and then we'll speed through the rest of them. We'll have a look at one game in depth, and then we'll have a little bit of a break for some trivia. But we'll start off with Mansfield against Huddersfield, the Battle of the Fields, I suppose, in Bosworth Battlefield. Mansfield, they've got 4 defeats in their last 4. Huddersfield, they're creeping up there, aren't they? They're up into 4th. Sam, your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, Mansfield have kind of did what we expected them to do when we did our predictions were wrong podcast.
Just a lot more dramatically. They've done it. They have imploded.
Yeah, 4 defeats in 5, with I think 3 of them they lost 1-0. I know they've lost them by a single goal. But a big problem has been open play for them. Just 12 goals from open play and 2 in their last 5. When we did, I can't remember. I haven't got the graph to hand this week, but their points per game, or their predicted points based on every single metric, they were about 17th after about 13 games. We're now 17 games in, and they are coming down to that 17th place. So I still don't think it's a bad start for Mansfield. If they finish 17th at the start of the season after losing your best player in Keeler Dunn, you'd probably accept it. Staying up is probably the best thing you can do in your first season. For Huddersfield, obviously they're looking at the other end of the spectrum, coming down. You want to go straight back up. So there's a lot of pressure on Michael Duff. And obviously we thought there wasn't a lot of overhaul in a squad that had a very losing, negative mentality in it. But over the last 5 league games, their points per game is the same as Wycombe's. I think it's 2.6. And in their last 8 League One games, they are unbeaten. So if you're going by the form books, there's only one outcome in this game. If you want to take home and away form into the consideration, Mansfield home form is 3 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. And Huddersfield's away form is 3 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses. So they're literally near enough identical. So
it's one of them. I think that the tables, like you say, stats do kind of come into it. The table's kind of like averaging back out. We're nearly at the point where everyone has played everyone once. This kind of point, most teams on 17 or 18 games. Obviously, Birmingham on 15 is the outlier, as Birmingham tends to be this year. I don't know why that is. But the tables kind of realign, and a lot of teams are kind of like having to reanalyze. Not least Mansfield Town and to the same extent, kind of Lincoln City. You know, they're both sides that, you know, would at the start of the season, you know, 4th and 5th at points, and they'd have gone, oh, you know, maybe this is our year to be the surprise package. And with the exception of probably Reading and Wycombe, who, you know, they just seem to just be unstoppable at the moment. You'd argue the table's kind of averaging out at the moment. So in terms of predictions for this one, I am obviously going towards Huddersfield. It's just, you know, is it going to be a free scoring game for Huddersfield, or is it going to be a tight match that I'm not sure? Do you know what I mean? It's like, is it going to be tight, or is it going to be open? I feel like this has the potential to go either way. What are you thinking?
I've gone for a 2-1 Huddersfield victory. And I've got to try and really think about these this week, because my predictions over the last 3 weeks have been terrible.
I mean, now I'm ahead. I could go back to
you could just
copy sneaky tactic of just copying and then winning, but I feel like that doesn't impress anyone. So I'm going to stick my neck on the line and say 3-2 to Huddersfield.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know why I get the idea there might be a few more goals in that one, but yeah, there we go. So as always, we're going to do our little trivia corner, have a little bit of a pause for a second, and then get back to looking into some games. So Sam, our quiz master, get your quiz master hat on. That we're still in the post, in it, from what I can remember.
Oh, definitely.
But go on. What are the questions for this week's trivia corner?
So as always, if you want to get involved in the YouTube comment section, put your answers in the comment section. We're going to read out the 2 questions, have a quick ad break, and then I will reveal the answers after. So the first trivia corner question this week is, can you name the last 5 League One leaders at Christmas. So that's 2023, 22, 21, 20, and 2019. Can you name the leaders at Christmas? And the second question is, in 2016, which team was top at Christmas, but they now play in the National League North? They are the 2 questions this week. So leave your answers in the comment section if you want to get involved. And we're going to go to a quick ad break, and then I shall tell you the answers.
Go on, Sam, tell us some answers then.
Okay, so the first answer to the question, which was, can you name the last 5 League One leaders at Christmas? The 2023 one was indeed Portsmouth, who went on to win the league. 2022 was Plymouth Argyle, who I believe finished second that season. 2021 was Rotherham. 2020 was Portsmouth again. And 2019 was Wycombe, who then went on to win the playoffs. And the second answer was in 2016, which team was top at Christmas but now plays in the National League North. That is, of course, Scunthorpe United.
Interesting. They're not in a good run of form, are they? From what I remember in the National League North, few argy-bargies happening there. But welcome back to the League One Lowdown preview show with me, Callum, and Sam. Let's look at 2 other games. We'll look at Wycombe against Reading in a moment, but we'll start off with Blackpool against Rotherham. 2 sides that I don't want to say fallen giants by League One standards, but the 2 sides that you would have thought would have been in the playoffs that are just outside the relegation zone at the moment, Sam.
It could be 2 managers who could get sacked if they lose as well. I know Steve Bruce has been appointed very recently, but they're 18th at the moment, 2 points clear of the relegation zone. But at the time of recording, they are 2 points clear because they haven't played Shrewsbury yet. But after Shrewsbury's result, they've not played for about 10 days, Shrewsbury as well. They're going to be raring to go. They've had 10 days of Gareth Ainsworth coaching. So they've got bags of injuries. So there's a chance that Shrewsbury could go and get another result. But they did win their last league game, Blackpool, which was their first win in 9 League One matches. And as I said, they're 2 points clear of the relegation zone, which is not where you expect Blackpool to be, regardless of the number of injuries. Going forward, they have an abundance of talent. So they should try. Maybe Steve Bruce was a weird appointment, I said in the first place anyway. Bit of what we call a dinosaur manager now. Like if you look at a lot of League One managers, there's not many pensioner-aged managers in League One anymore.
No,
I can't think of many off the top of my head.
It's a young league, isn't it?
It's a much younger league. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if there's any really old, other than Brucey, managers that are quite old. Like at the top of the league, you've got Matt Bloomfield. You've got Phil Parkinson. I don't think is near retirement age, but he's obviously experienced. Chris Davis is young at Birmingham. Michael Duff's mid-40s, so he's still a young manager. I can't think of one. And then you've got Steve Evans, who's also near retirement age. And that's not going well for him at Rotherham either. I mean, we all expected Rotherham to do exceptionally well this year. But having a deeper look at their squad, I've said this numerous times, there's actually no athleticism in that side at all. It's so one-dimensional, and they rely heavily on set pieces. And when you play a team that's vulnerable to set pieces, obviously they're going to score goals. But Rotherham are on the same number of points as Blackpool after beating Lincoln in midweek. But that means it's 2 wins from 6 for Steve Evans' side. But in terms of Rotherham's away form, they've won 1 game away from home and only scored 6 goals. Blackpool's home form, they've won 2, drawn 4 and lost 2. So they do like a draw at home.
Yeah, and it's interesting what you say about managers. But they are the 2 oldest in the league at 63 and 62. So I suppose it's kind of like, they go with the old school tactics. We talk about football always evolving and that sort of thing. It's not a slight on their age. It's just, people have tactics from the past and, football moves on, and it's whether you can evolve with the times, I guess. Nigel Clough and Phil Parkinson are 58 and 57 in terms of the next oldest. Tom Hounsell at the youngest, if anyone was interested, at 29, interim at Burton, I believe, at the moment.
How they still don't have a manager.
Still don't have a manager, although to be fair, who would want to go into that club at the moment. But that's getting away from the point. Yeah, Rotherham, they seem to be, from what I could kind of get from yesterday's game, they seem to be going more down the Steve Bruce angle. The players that it does feel like the players are sort of starting to get the Steve Evans tactics. Did I say that wrong earlier as well? It's like the Steve Evans tactics. They're finally getting it. Does that make sense? Like,
I get what you mean.
We saw like with Adam Jackson going off early. Like, a lot of people are suggesting that was deliberate. You know, they know that Lincoln's biggest asset is Adam Jackson defensively. You know, just come off an injury, so why not just go up and give him a concussion straight away? Do you know what I mean?
I don't mean.
And
That would be an Evans tactic as well.
It would be, and you know, I don't want to say there's anything. I don't want to accuse Steve Evans of anything, but it would not, you know. And I'm not in the realms of conspiracy here, but if Steve Evans, you know, Steve Evans would have definitely said, "Get in his face." Whether Steve Evans would have said, "Give him a concussion and a broken nose straight away," is different. But you know, the sentiment's the same, isn't it? I suppose. So in terms of this game, it's really difficult. Two managers who need a win by all stretch of the imagination. You know, if one of these sides loses, if it's not a draw, then you know the other side could be in the relegation zone. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of that, and we could end today. There were points, weren't there, yesterday when Rotherham were in the relegation zone?
Yeah.
At points. So. In terms of this one, I can see a draw coming along, 1-1. I think
exactly what I've got.
I hadn't even looked at the screen, so there you go.
I know Blackpool have got a lot of injuries, but at home, their home form's okay. Rotherham's away form is dismal. So I think a draw is a likely result.
So the last game we're going to cover more in depth is Wycombe against Reading. Wycombe, their spotless form has got a little bit of a blemish on it with that draw yesterday. Not that that's a huge thing, I suppose, when you're on such a good run of form. But they play Reading, who just we keep on saying they'll slip up, and you know they've not been spotless by any stretch of the imagination. You know, but they're sixth. And no one would have predicted that.
Oh, 100%. I think you'd have won a lot of money if you predicted Reading to be top six at the moment. But I think that main part is Reading's home form. Only 9 of their 30 points have come from away from home. And obviously travelling to Wycombe, whose home form is 6 wins and a loss, like completely opposite ends of the spectrum. They've both got extremely good home records, these sides. Wycombe have funnily enough, only played 7 games at home, but have played 10 away. So they're going to be looking forward to some much needed home games. But like you said, Wycombe's obviously winning run of 11, I think it was, club record has came to an end. But coming from 2-0 down shows that they've still got that fight, that character in the squad to overcome adversity, which is something that title winners have to do. There's going to be points in the season where you go 2-0 down. Can you battle back? On a cold, chilly coastal night after a long journey, can you fight and get a point? They've done that, and that point could win them top 2 at the end of the season.
I mean, it doesn't have the same ring to it as a cold Tuesday night in Stoke, but I get the sentiment. I don't think Exeter has ever been compared to Stoke City, but there you go. I get your point. And the thing is, I feel like what we keep saying about Reading has to be true. That's not me saying for ignorance. Like, you cannot expect such a small squad to get through this game. Get through this season. Sorry, I really don't think you can. They're so. I don't know. It's such a young side. It's such a small club as well. Not a small club. Sorry, small. Like,
they're coming at you now.
They're coming. That was a misspeak. Please don't kill me, Reading. But then I suppose I don't want to say the same could be said for Wycombe, but again, like you look at the squad, and at the start of the season, no one would have expected it. It's just those players have grown and they've developed, and I suppose that's what matters, isn't it? We can look at the squad and we can look at what we expect of these players, but it means nothing on full time. I'm going with 3-1, I think, on this one. I kind of back Wycombe to, they've got that fire in their belly after a bit of a sloppy start to the game. Anyway, I think you can kind of see the message in training was, don't let, you've seen what happens when you get complacent. We got lucky. Don't let it happen again. And I think that message will seem like quite a reactive bunch. Do you know what I mean? Like they'll take that on board, and I reckon that message will sink in. Sorry, Reading.
Yeah, I've gone for 3-0 to Wycombe. We know they score goals. I think they've continued that run of only not scoring 2 in 2 games this season, 2 or more. So value for money if you're watching Wycombe Wanderers so far this season.
Yeah, 38 goals is by far the most of any side now. Peterborough were close, but they're still on 32 and only played 1 game less. So yeah, Wycombe have really stormed ahead on that that measure, I suppose. So let's fire through the rest of the games this weekend, starting with Lincoln against Charlton, 2 sides who absolutely shot on target. Lincoln City can't defend or attack at the moment. I think that the way that they summed it up yesterday was the brilliant, in the bit between the 18-yard boxes. It's just when they get in the 18-yard boxes, they're shot and they just cannot do anything at all. But Charlton, their form speaks for itself at the minute. 2 wins and 11. Sam, your thoughts?
It's 2 teams completely out of form, isn't it? This game, but your home form's quite good. You're quite good at home. This won't be a high-scoring game. No. I am going to go for Lincoln to win 1-0.
I don't usually do this with Lincoln. I usually back them, but knowing what I know about Lincoln on a Saturday morning, they tend to be a bit boring on a Saturday morning. So I'm going to go 0-0. I think, do you know what? I think a lot of Lincoln fans would take that because they won't have conceded, and that's the worry at the moment. Is they can take not conceding goal, they can take not scoring goals because occasionally one just pops up. But do you know what I mean? Like a goal always tends to pop up, but when you're conceding 2-3 times a match at the moment, it's just not attainable. Moving on to Wigan against Leyton Orient. Wigan into 16th. Orient, I don't want to say they're on a good run of form, but at least they've won a game every now and then. So they're up into 20th. Sam, your thoughts on this one?
I mean, if we play like we did last night, we will beat Wigan. I mean, we've had 2 defeats in our last 6 league games. Wigan's 3-game winning run was halted by Huddersfield. 2 sides who I think are in false positions in the table, to be honest. I think, and we have gone to the North West this season and battered Stockport. I'm not going to say Manchester because we'll have people in the comments claiming our geography is terrible. If I just say Northwest, I'm okay.
Just say everywhere's north. You're from London, right?
This is a good point.
PM25.
I don't think we'll lose. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw.
Interesting. I back Leyton Orient 1-0, I think.
Oh, okay.
There we go. I don't know why. 1-0. There we go.
You seem to be backing us a lot at the moment. It's quite.
I do. I think it's out of pity. I think it's just pity for you, to be honest. I think if I give Leyton Orient a win, you'll buy me a nicer shirt if I lose the prediction game or something. I don't fucking know. On to Crawley against Stevenage. Crawley, they've done all right past couple of games, and at 5 undefeated at the moment. They're doing incredibly well. Up to 19th. It's that kind of like slow improvement that is probably the most pleasing. Stevenage, just doing Stevenage things, finally won a game, which seems like something they've not done for a while. So well done. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's probably the most enthralling game on paper. There's a couple of them this weekend, but I've been really impressed with Rob Elliott since he's gone into Crawley. He's continued the good work that Scott Lindsay's done while adding his own little touches to the team. Obviously, injuries will play a big part in Crawley's season. It's the first time Stevenage have actually scored 2 in a league game since the 14th of September to show how boring they've been this year. But as we know, Stevenage are incredibly difficult to beat. This has got a very non-league vibe to this game in my mind. but I've been really impressed with Crawley. I think it's going to be. I'm going to go 1-1 again.
I'll go 2-1. I back Crawley on this one. They're playing some nice stuff at the moment, so whether they can just like with Stevenage and Rotherham, I don't want to put them in the same camp, but it's just whether you can escape the boringness of them and the I don't want to say the anti-football, but I'm going to say it, the anti-football. On to Barnsley versus Birmingham, probably a biggish, one of the bigger games, I think, of the weekend. In terms of for Barnsley, at least, they could get them back into the top 3. Birmingham, they need to win it to kind of, only one win in the last 4 league games as well. When you kind of put it into competition, into comparison, sorry, it's an interesting game for Birmingham. You want them, you don't want them to, but they'd want to get back to winning form. So I'll back him on this one. I think I'll go 2-0 Birmingham. And obviously you mentioned Barnsley's home form. They're not great, are they?
No, they've only won 2 home games. I'm inclined to agree with you on the 2-0, but I don't want to copy your scoreline. So I'm going to go 3-1 to Birmingham. I'll go with the same outcome. I'll go with a different score.
Interesting. Cambridge versus Shrewsbury, huge game at the bottom of the park. A win for Cambridge would put them within touching distance of escaping the bottom 4. A win for Shrewsbury, they would leapfrog Cambridge. And again, I don't want to say in touching distance because it'd still be a 4-point gap, but closer anyway to escaping the drop. I don't want to say I'm on Team Shrewsbury because I'm definitely not, but I back them to get a result here, 2-0.
Okay. Oh, I've put it in the wrong box. I've gone for 2-1 to Shrewsbury. So again, same outcome, just a different result. I think the Gareth Ainsworth effect. I think we'll see it on Tuesday against Blackpool, and then we'll see it again against the Gary Monk side, who now haven't won in 5 after that mini clean sheet revival they had.
On to Stockport against Exeter. Stockport up into 5th, and with all the teams around them now on the same amount of games. There was a time where Stockport, I think, had played a lot of games, but they're on the same amount of games now, and they're still in 5th. So fair play to them. Won the last 3 on the trot in the league against an Exeter side that still don't tend to score or concede much at all, really. I kind of back Stockport here. Kind of clever 1-0 win, I think.
Okay. I've gone for Stockport. I've gone for 2-0 though. I think you can't look past Louis Barry probably scoring this weekend. There obviously have been rumours. I think it's right to mention that there was mention of Louis Barry being recalled to Villa to send him to the Championship.
Yeah.
13 goals this season. Obviously, is a big part of what Stockport have done well. But he missed over 20 games for them last year, and they still managed to get promoted. So, but obviously we're at a level higher now, so it may impact them more than it did last year.
So there we go. Final 3 games then. Bristol Rovers against Bolton. Bristol Rovers 15th, Bolton in 7th. Bolton level on points with the playoffs just outside on goal difference, which I think I pointed out in a podcast at the start of the year, is that their worry was the goal difference, and that's and I don't want to say that's what's going to cost them because there's still a lot of the season to go, but they're outside on goal difference at the minute, and by far the worst of the top 7 on goal difference anyway. Interesting one for this one. Bolton, they seem to be coming into that, don't want to say form because they've lost 1, drawn 1, but they kind of just seem to be clicking along nicer than they were. I'll go with a 2-0 Bolton.
Okay. Yeah, if Bristol Rovers played out they did in midweek, honestly, they're the worst team I've seen in a very long time. Very long time. I know it obviously hasn't helped with Matt Taylor for personal issues, and we wish everyone well in that scenario. But they've won 2 of their last 8 games, Bristol Rovers, and they've now started a run of where they play Bolton, Birmingham, Wrexham. So you're probably looking at 3 defeats in a row on paper. I also think Bolton will win, but I think Bolton will score 4, and I think they'll win 4-0.
Interesting. And again, that word seems to be coming back into my vocabulary. Burton against Wrexham. Burton, that just what this has got to be up there with some of, or at least one of the worst takeover flops, if that makes sense. Like we saw Chelsea that take over and all this ambition, and they're just flat as a pancake. Whereas Burton, just there's no sign of anything at the moment from them. Lost to Tamworth on penalties in the A38 derby as well. It's just not going well for them at all.
No, they've got a fans forum coming up on December the 17th as well, so that will be
God help
interesting
them.
because
God help them.
how they still haven't got a manager. You're talking a club that's got 8 points in League One so far this season. What, they're nearly 10. Oh, they are 10 points from safety already. You don't have a manager. You're looking at the table if you're a manager thinking, I don't particularly want to go there. They don't, like I've said many times, the recruitment was completely scattergun. There's not enough League One quality in that squad anyway. Mm-hmm. There's all this feel-good feeling about Burton with the takeover, a new manager. It's not really gone to plan, to be honest. Wrexham, on the other hand, while they're really poor away from home, they've only picked 9 points away compared to 28 at home. They do have 3 clean sheets in a row. They have obviously played 3 games more than Birmingham, sitting in second. But I don't think you can see past a Wrexham win for this game.
No, nowhere near, and it might. I don't want to say a bloodbath, but I'd go 3-0 Wrexham.
3-0 Wrexham. I've gone for 2-0 to Wrexham. Just a professional performance.
And on to the final game, Northampton against Peterborough. Sam, take it away.
Yeah, it's bipolar Peterborough, as we've nicknamed them this season, isn't it? They're 14th in the table, but as we all know with Peterborough, at any given moment, they could go on a run of winning 5 in a row, scoring 5 in every single game. That's very plausible, literally happen. But if they beat Burton tonight at the time of recording, they go up to 10th. So swings and roundabouts, and then we're probably talking them in a bit more of a positive manner, sitting in the top half. Northampton, I think it's been coming for a little while, them falling into the bottom 4. It matches up with every single metric in terms of their 21st in expected goals. Their second worst XG conceded in the league behind Northampton. You put 2 and 2 together, you probably put them 22nd, currently sitting 21st. Lots of injuries, not a lot of quality in the squad. It's a very big January coming up for Northampton. And playing Peterborough could possibly be the worst team you want to play when you're leaking goals. As we know, Peterborough have already scored 6 on 1 occasion so far this season. I wouldn't put it past them to actually go and do it again. I'm not going to predict that because that's just Barney. But I will predict them to score 3 and them to win 3-1.
Had to just do a quick Google check to see how far they were apart. Because in my mind, they're not a million miles apart, but it's still a solid hour and a bit. So I'm not going to put it in the realms of a derby, although it could. Some people would. But yeah, I don't know. I think Peterborough they'll go 2-0 down and then they'll win like 4-2 or something like that. And you can mock me for 4-2 is not a common scoreline, is it? But there we go. There's our predictions. Sam, do you have any hope that you'll do any better than this week?
Oh, bloody well hope so. I can't get 1 point again. I mean, I'm just praying that I get all 3 correct tonight and I can go, yes. And then we'll come back next week and we'll go, yeah, well, Sam got 9 points and that he's leading at the end of the week. That would be lovely.
Oh, dear. Well, we'll wait and see. But no, that's the end of this episode of League One Lowdown, the preview show. Be back on Monday. Will Seb and Jamie with the review show, or Sunday, depends when they're feeling like it. We'll have to wait and see. We'll be back next week, as always, looking ahead to another round of League One fixtures. But whatever it is you're doing, good night, good evening, and good morning. We'll see you soon.